When Daniel told me he was feeling lost, I didn't question it. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, eyes heavy, voice low, like he was about to confess something sacred. "I need to find myself," he said. "I'm going on a spiritual retreat. No phone, no work, no distractions, just nature, yoga, healing." I blinked, confused but concerned. He looked tired, worn out, like the world had pushed too hard and he needed space to breathe. So I nodded. Because that's what love is, isn't it? Letting them go, hoping they come back whole. I helped him pack, folded his linen shirts, tucked his favorite incense into a side pocket, even slipped in a tiny notebook in case he wanted to journal. He kissed my forehead and promised to return lighter. I believed him. I believed every damn word. I texted his mom that weekend, told her he was off the grid, doing soul work. She said she was proud of him. I was too. At least, I thought I was. That was before everything cracked open. The house was quiet with him gone. I lit candles in the evening, played soft music, and sat with my thoughts. I wrote him long messages I knew he wouldn't read. Things like, "I hope you're finding your center," or "I miss your energy around the house." I even posted a picture of his packed bag with a heart emoji. Silly, I know, but it felt right at the time, like I was supporting something meaningful, like we were in this together. I remember standing by the kitchen window that first night, watching the incense swirl in the air like a dance I wasn't invited to. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was hollow. I kept thinking about Daniel somewhere deep in the forest, maybe meditating by a stream, maybe rediscovering himself under the stars. It was almost poetic, really. I even smiled once, imagining him in a yoga pose, all serious and spiritual. I wanted to believe in his healing as much as he seemed to believe in needing it. The truth is, we hadn't been perfect. There were cracks, quiet ones, the kind you don't notice until they start leaking at the worst times. Missed dinners, strange absences, that look he gave his phone when he thought I wasn't watching. But every couple has phases, right? I told myself he was just overwhelmed. Work had been brutal. He wasn't sleeping. And maybe, just maybe, this retreat was what he needed to return to me, to us, to the man I married. So I leaned into the idea. I journaled too, pages about our past, about what we'd fix when he came home. I even made a list titled "Ways to Reconnect" with little bullet points like "cook together" and "morning walks." I wanted him to feel safe when he came back, to feel wanted. It wasn't about me, I told myself. It was about his journey, his healing. I didn't realize, not then, that I was the only one taking it seriously. By Saturday night, I had started lighting a candle for him before bed. It felt symbolic somehow, like I was holding space while he found his way back. I even turned off my own phone for a few hours each day, just to mirror the quiet he was supposedly embracing. I told friends, when they asked, that he was off the grid. I made it sound brave. Like he was doing something noble, spiritual, even rare. And I meant it. I defended his absence like it was sacred. But underneath it all, I was waiting. Waiting for a text, a sign, a whisper from the universe that we were still connected. I didn't need much, just something small. The silence, though, kept growing, stretching across hours and meals and empty bedsheets. It started to feel less like peace and more like absence. But I kept ignoring that ache. I held on to the idea of him in some quiet forest, becoming better, becoming honest, becoming true. So when Sunday came, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, sat by the window with my journal in my lap, and told myself this was good. This was necessary. I took a deep breath and turned the page to write him another letter he'd never read, when my phone buzzed. Just once. But that sound would split everything in half. It was just one message, a tiny vibration, A single notification, like the universe had finally spoken. I picked up my phone expecting, I don't know, maybe a missed call from Daniel, maybe a power outage at the retreat, maybe nothing at all. But it wasn't nothing. It was a message from Marcella, a family friend who never texted unless it was someone's birthday or a baby was born. Her words came fast, too fast. Didn't Daniel say he was at a retreat? Weird. We saw him yesterday, in Boozios, 5-star resort, with a woman. I stared at the screen. The words didn't register at first. I actually laughed, one of those dry, confused, automatic laughs. Then I saw the photo. Blurry, yes, but clear enough. Daniel. Swim trunks. A cocktail in one hand, the other casually resting on the leg of a tall brunette in a green bikini. They were lounging poolside, looking like a damn travel ad. And just behind them, the resort's logo carved into white stone. Not a forest, not a meditation tent, no yoga mats, just sun, alcohol, and skin. My hand didn't shake. That's what I remember most. I thought it would, but it didn't. I just sat there, staring. My tea had gone cold. The incense on the windowsill was still burning, leaving a faint trail in the air like some sick joke. My husband, the man supposedly detoxing from distraction, was sipping caipirinhas with another woman while I was lighting candles for his healing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I got quiet. The kind of quiet that feels louder than anything else. I zoomed in on the photo. His smile wasn't just relaxed, it was intimate, familiar. Like he'd smiled that way 1,000 times with her. The woman beside him had her hand resting on his chest, fingers tracing that spot just above his heart. That used to be mine. That lazy kind of touch, the one you only do when you feel safe with someone. I tried to remember the last time I touched him like that, or the last time he let me. My mind came up empty, like trying to remember the warmth of a room you haven't been in for years. And still, I didn't cry. I just felt stripped. Like someone had walked into my home and taken something that couldn't be replaced. He hadn't just lied about where he was. He'd made me complicit. I was out here playing the supportive wife, telling people he was soul-searching, when really he was lounging with someone half my age in a luxury villa. The betrayal wasn't just about the woman. It was about the performance, the manipulation, the ease with which he disappeared into the lie. I sat in silence for a long time. Then I closed the photo, set the phone down, and looked around the room. The blanket on the couch, the cup of pens he always ignored, the framed photo of us from last year's anniversary dinner. It all felt staged now, like props in a play I didn't realize I was acting in. But I wasn't going to sit in that scene anymore. I stood up, not to cry, not to fall apart, to plan. Because if he thought he could find himself, he had no idea what I was about to uncover. I went to the bedroom and opened his drawer, the one I rarely touched because it felt private, sacred in a way. It was nearly empty. He hadn't even packed like someone going on a spiritual retreat. It was vacation wear. Linen shirts, cologne, that ridiculous gold watch he only wore when he wanted to feel expensive. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the space where his things used to be, and it hit me. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. He'd rehearsed this, the speech, the bags, the silence. I'd been played. I thought about calling him, just once, just to ask. Why? But what would he say? That he needed clarity? That the woman in the photo helped him breathe? No. I wouldn't give him that power. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he got to me. If he had built an illusion to run off and find himself, then I would let him live in it, at least for now. But not without consequences. I wasn't going to chase him. I was going to walk right into his fantasy and shatter it from the inside. So I picked up my phone, opened a new tab, and typed in the name of the resort. It was easy to find. 5 stars, oceanfront, all-inclusive. Of course. I didn't hesitate. I booked a private villa under a different last name, calm and cold as ice. If he wanted a secret life, I could play that game too. But the ending? That would be mine to write. The drive to Boozios was long, but my mind was louder than the engine. I didn't play music. I needed the silence, needed to feel every mile between the woman I'd been and the woman I was becoming. My hands stayed steady on the wheel. No trembling, no second guessing. I had packed light, just a flowy dress, sunglasses, and a rage so quiet it almost felt graceful. As the coastline came into view, I could see exactly why he chose this place. It was paradise. And now, it was my stage. I checked in just before sunset. The woman at the front desk smiled too brightly, tapping away at her keyboard. "Welcome back," she said without looking up. Then, glancing at the name on the reservation, different from his, she hesitated. "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought, never mind." Her voice softened. "You and your husband must love this place. He's been a regular lately." I smiled. "Not the kind that reaches your eyes." "I'm just here for clarity," I replied, and she handed me the key. Room 11. Close enough to watch without being seen. The villa was beautiful. White curtains swayed with the sea breeze, and the view from the balcony stretched all the way to the restaurant patio. I sat there for hours that first night, watching the rhythm of the place. Lovers laughing, waiters weaving between tables. And then, him, Daniel. Tanned, relaxed, holding a drink in one hand and her in the other. They looked like they belonged in a honeymoon brochure. But the thing about brochures is, they never show you what happens after the photos fade. I watched them like it was a ritual. Breakfast at the terrace around 9, pool by 10, cocktails at noon. Every move predictable, rehearsed, almost boring in its routine. He wasn't a man searching for peace. He was a man enjoying comfort. And she? She floated beside him like an accessory, all giggles and tan lines and cheap perfume that probably thought it smelled like coconut but really smelled like a lie. I studied them with the kind of calm only betrayal can sharpen. In between watching, I made notes. Not just mental ones. I wrote in the same journal I'd once used to send him love. Now it held schedules, patterns, details, who spoke to who, what they ordered, when he touched her. I wasn't collecting proof. I wasn't planning a confrontation. Not yet. This was about understanding the world he'd created for himself, the fantasy he chose over the life we built. And the more I watched, the more obvious it became. He was comfortable lying. Effortlessly comfortable. The staff didn't even blink when they walked in together. No second glances, no discomfort. That's when it hit me. This wasn't new. This had been going on for a while. Long enough that the deception wasn't just mine to carry, it was part of the wallpaper now. And I think that's when the anger turned sharp. Cold. Because I realized he hadn't just lied to me. He'd erased me, replaced me, smiled through it. But if he thought he'd written the ending to this story, he was about to find out I had the pen. That evening, I walked the grounds like I belonged there. No hat, no sunglasses, just my face, bare and unapologetic. I wasn't hiding. I wanted to be seen, but not yet by him. I passed couples holding hands, heard the sound of clinking glasses, the soft splash of the infinity pool. The place was drenched in luxury and pretense, and I fit right in, at least on the surface. But beneath it all, I was humming with purpose. Every step was calculated, every glance strategic. I was the storm just before the wind shifts. At one point, I passed close enough to hear his laugh, not the polite kind. The real one, deep and careless. I froze for a second. Not out of sadness, but out of recognition. That laugh used to belong to our Saturday mornings, our road trips, our lazy Sunday afternoons in bed. And now it was hers. This stranger who probably thought she was special. And maybe she was. Special enough to be lied to, too. Because if he did it to me, he'd do it to her. I knew that now. But I wasn't here for her. I returned to my room, drew a bath, and poured a glass of wine. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Hair tied back, eyes steady, face softer than I expected. I looked free. Maybe for the first time in a long time. The kind of free that only comes when you know something they don't. When you're about to take the truth and drop it into the middle of someone's carefully constructed lie. And that moment? It was closer than he could ever imagine. I chose sunset on purpose. There's something cinematic about golden hour, the way it softens everything except the truth. I wore white, not for symbolism, not for drama, just because I knew it would catch the light and their attention. I waited until they were seated at their favorite table, the one closest to the water. I watched him toast her with that smug little grin, watched her tilt her head like she was the prize. And then I walked. Every step across that terrace felt electric. Heads turned, some out of curiosity, others sensing tension before they even saw my face. But I didn't care about them. My eyes were locked on him, and when I reached their table, I didn't hesitate. I pulled out the third chair, slowly, deliberately, and sat down. The air shifted. I could feel it. Conversations at nearby tables went quiet. The only sound left was the waves and his breathing. His hand froze midair. The fork dropped. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw panic fight to hide behind charm. "Camilla?" he said, like I was the one out of place. I tilted my head, calm as ever. "Oh, you found yourself all right," I said, my voice steady. "And I found your lies." Then I reached into my purse and took off my wedding ring. No speech, no drama. Just placed it between their untouched chocolate mousse and the resort's overpriced champagne. He opened his mouth, probably to lie, but nothing came out. Just air. Just guilt, thick and visible, like steam rising off his skin. She glanced between us, confused, like she was still trying to piece together whether this was a prank or a performance. I leaned in slightly, meeting her gaze, not with anger, but with clarity. "He told me you were his yoga instructor," I said, my voice like velvet laced with knives. I didn't realize downward dog had such a literal meaning. She blinked. The color drained from her face just as fast as it had lit up when he brought the champagne. For a second, no one moved. Then I reached for the ring one last time, slid it toward her side of the table. "You can keep that," I said. "He's good at making things look pretty. Not so good at keeping them real." Around us, people pretended not to watch, but they were frozen in place. Spoons suspended midair. Conversations paused like a skipped heartbeat. Daniel finally found his voice. "Camilla, this isn't what it looks like," he started, like a man desperately clinging to the last page of a crumbling script. But I was already standing. "You're right," I said. "It's worse." I straightened my shoulders, fixed my dress, and gave them both one last look. Not with rage, but with something far more dangerous. Indifference. He didn't deserve fury. He deserved to be small in a place he thought he ruled. As I turned to walk away, I didn't rush. I wanted him to feel every step. Every breath of distance growing between us. I passed the bar, where a couple clapped softly. I didn't acknowledge it. This wasn't a performance. It was closure. I felt tall, whole, like shedding his lies had made room for my spine to straighten again. And behind me, I didn't hear footsteps. He didn't follow. He just sat there, probably choking on the silence he'd created. I walked straight through the lobby, past the same receptionist who'd welcomed me with a cheerful lie. This time she avoided my eyes. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't. It didn't matter. I reached my villa, packed slowly, methodically. No music, no tears. I didn't need to rush. The storm had already passed, and in its wake, I felt strangely calm. Not healed, not yet, but clear. Like the moment after a deep exhale, when the air finally feels clean again. I stood on the balcony one last time, watching the sun melt into the sea. Same view he had, only I saw it differently now. Not as a romantic backdrop, but as proof of endings, of truth, of beauty that doesn't require an audience. I didn't come here to confront him. I came to reclaim something he didn't even know he'd taken. Me. And tomorrow, I'd return home. But not to wait, not to beg, to begin again, on my terms. I checked out just after sunrise. No fanfare, no backward glance. Just handed over the key, nodded politely, and walked out lighter than I'd felt in years. The air was different that morning. Warmer, quieter. Or maybe it was just me. I didn't rush the drive back. I let the wind roll through the windows, let it carry away whatever was left of the version of me that waited, hoped, forgave. That version died somewhere between the first lie and the last cocktail. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't sit in the silence like I used to. I went straight to our closet, his side, and started pulling things down. Shirts he never folded. Shoes he only wore to impress. That ridiculous meditation bowl he bought online. I packed it all neatly, almost tenderly. Not out of love, out of finality. I placed the suitcases in the hallway and topped them with a note. Namaste your way out of my life. Simple, honest, sharp enough to leave a mark. I changed the locks that same afternoon. Called the locksmith, made small talk while he worked. Told him I'd just come back from a trip. He smiled and said, "Good for you." And you know what? It was. It really was. I blocked Daniel's number, deleted our shared playlists, removed his name from the Wi-Fi. Every little step felt like sweeping out the ashes of something that was never meant to survive the fire. The house felt different without his things. Bigger, somehow. Not in size, but in air, in energy. It was like the walls had been waiting to exhale too. I opened the windows, let the sunlight in, rearranged the living room just because I could. And then, I did something small that felt enormous. I made coffee. Just for me. 1 cup, not 2. No wondering how he takes his. No second mug waiting on the counter like a ghost. Just silence and the soft hum of something new beginning. Later that week, I signed the divorce papers. No drama, no begging. Just a clear, intentional signature. The lawyer asked if I wanted to send a formal notice. I said no. He'd get the message when the key didn't work, the Wi-Fi name was gone, and his shirts were wrinkling in a hallway he couldn't enter. Let him figure it out. Let him sit in his own confusion for once. He wanted space? He could have all of it, just not mine. Not anymore. And then, one evening, I went to a yoga class. A real one. Nothing fancy. Just a small studio down the street where no one knew my story. The instructor had a soft voice, and the room smelled like eucalyptus and calm. I rolled out a mat, closed my eyes, and breathed. Not to escape. Not to find anyone. Just to feel my body again. My breath. Myself. And somewhere between child's pose and savasana, I smiled. For real this time. Because I didn't need to find myself. I just needed to remember I'd never been lost. There's something sacred about beginning again. Not with a bang, not with some dramatic flourish, but with small, steady choices. I started saying yes to things I used to put off. Dinner with friends. Walks at dusk. Books that didn't center around fixing a marriage. I bought new sheets, rearranged my dresser, hung up a photo of myself from years ago, smiling, free, before I ever thought I needed someone else to feel complete. I wasn't reclaiming anything. I was evolving. People started asking questions, of course, some gentle, some nosy. I answered what I wanted and left the rest alone. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not anymore. And as for Daniel, I never heard his voice again. Never saw him at the door, never got the grand apology. And I was okay with that, because I didn't need closure. I became it. Every day I didn't look back. Every morning I woke up alone but not lonely. That was the real peace he claimed to be searching for. So no, I didn't go on a retreat. I didn't detox or chant mantras in a forest. I didn't find myself in silence or prayer. I found myself in the mirror, in motion, in laughter I didn't fake, and nights I didn't dread. He left to find himself, and maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But me? I found everything he lost the moment he lied, and I'm never handing it back.